following is a feature presentation of the Replay Sports Channel, the home for great games. This telecast is copyrighted by the WFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or any pictures, descriptions or accounts of the game without the WFL's consent is prohibited.
Imagine throwing for like 500 yards, you know?
Yeah,
just orchestrating this completely flawless offensive game.
Right, playing essentially perfect football.
Exactly, not turning the ball over a single time and then walking off the field knowing your season is completely unequivocally over.
It's a brutal feeling.
But then you look across the league and you see a team whose quarterback threw for under 150 yards.
Yeah.
Yet they're the ones popping champagne because they just locked up a division title and like a premium playoff seed.
Which really highlights the absolute paradox of December football.
It really does. And that paradox is exactly what we're looking at today. Because you see, the final week of the regular season, it basically forces teams to show their true hands.
They can't hide anymore.
Right. They're either peeking, they're protecting, or they are just completely panicking.
And we saw all three of those scenarios play out in Week 16. I mean, the slate from December 21st, it served as this, well, essentially a real-time stress test for roster construction.
Oh, for sure.
We had teams deploying their heaviest packages to secure division crowns, right? But then we had coaching staffs benching their franchise pillars just to avoid injury.
And we had organizations systematically detonating their entire foundation to trigger a rebuild, which we will definitely get to.
Oh, the rebuilds. Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover.
We absolutely do. And we are so glad you are joining us for this deep dive into the Week 16 review of the 2025 WFL season.
The regular season is officially in the books.
It is. And our mission today is to really extract the critical storylines, dissect the most shocking collapses, and, you know, break down the historic individual performances that defined this finale.
That way you're fully prepped for the wildcard playoffs.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think we should start by examining the top of the standings. Specifically, the teams that used Week 16 to definitively prove their championship pedigree.
Right, the real heavyweights.
Exactly. The Chicago Fire and the New Jersey Hitmen both secured buys, but they did it by imposing entirely different schematic philosophies on their opponents.
I mean, let's look at Chicago first.
Yeah.
They locked up the #1 seed in the American Conference, and that's their first division title in 5 years under head coach John Harbaugh.
A long time coming for that franchise.
Yeah, and they just crushed the Las Vegas Outlaws. I mean, 21-3, and Vegas came into this game at 10-3, right? They were fighting for the West Division.
And Chicago essentially just bullied them right off the line of scrimmage.
Totally bullied them. Baker Mayfield earned MVP honors for the game, and he was incredibly efficient. He went 14 of 21 for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns.
But the thing is, that kind of efficiency doesn't just happen by accident. It is engineered.
Right, and Harbaugh is a master of that.
He really is. It's engineered through personnel groupings. Like Harbaugh leaned heavily into 12 and 13 personnel in this game.
Remind everybody what that means in this context.
So that means they had 2 or 3 tight ends on the field on almost every early downs.
Right, massive bodies out there.
Exactly. And when an offense does that, the defense is forced to respond. Right? They have to bring heavier, slower linebackers onto the field just to defend the run.
And once Vegas committed those linebackers to the box, Mayfield simply used play action to throw into the voids they left behind in coverage.
Yep. He was taking exactly what the defensive structure surrendered. It's brilliant in its simplicity.
And, I mean, the reason Las Vegas had to overcommit those linebackers in the first place was Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh, absolutely. He was a wrecking ball.
He really was. He finished the year with 1,084 rushing yards, but it was that 81-yard touchdown run that just broke the game wide open.
That put Chicago up 14-0, right?
Yeah, 14-0. And when you watch the tape on that run, it isn't just his raw speed. He presses the A-gap. He forces the defensive tackle to commit inside. And then,
That jump cut.
man, the jump cut cut. It's violent. He makes this violent cut to the outside and completely erases the pursuit angles of the entire secondary.
Because that jump cut, it forces the safeties to alter their pursuit angles on the fly. And that is incredibly difficult for larger defenders to do when they're already moving downhill at full speed.
They just end up grasping at air.
Exactly. And, Vegas held the ball for nearly 36 minutes in this game.
Wow, 36 minutes.
Yeah, but because Chicago's defense logged 6 sacks on Jalen Hurts and Sam Howell, that time of possession was completely hollow. They just couldn't finish drives.
Which perfectly transitions us to the New Jersey Hitmen, because they also clinched by the number 2 seed by suffocating Birmingham 34-7.
And if Chicago won through heavy personnel and play action, New Jersey won through sheer secondary dominance.
It was a masterclass. I mean, MVP Patrick Surtain II just blanketed the Birmingham receivers. The Hitmen held them to 125 total yards of offense.
That's practically nothing in the modern era.
Right. But the most glaring metric from this game, and I had to read this twice, is that Birmingham went 0 for 11 on third downs.
0 for 11.
I mean, how does a professional offense go 0 for 11 on third downs?
Well, to pull that off as a defense, it requires you to perfectly synchronize your coverage shells with your pass rush.
So the back end and the front end are playing in perfect harmony.
Exactly. When a defense achieves this, it usually means they're successfully disguising their coverages post-snap. Surtain was playing this aggressive press man coverage on the outside, basically taking away the quarterback's primary read instantly.
And when the quarterback hits the back of his drop and sees his first option is just totally erased.
His eyes inevitably drop to the pass rush.
And once the quarterback's eyes drop to the rush, the play is dead.
100%. Because now you have defensive linemen running stunts, where the defensive tackle crashes into the center to clear a path.
For the defensive end looping inside. Right.
Precisely. The offensive line gets confused, the protection slides the wrong way, and boom, the quarterback gets hit.
And while the defense was generating all those rapid 3-and-outs, the New Jersey offense deployed just a relentless rushing attack.
They really leaned on the ground game.
They did. Rashad White broke off a 51-yard touchdown run, and then Joe Mixon and Tyrone Tracy Jr. just continually pounded the interior gaps.
Those three combined for over 200 rushing yards.
Which is insane. I mean, these two teams, Chicago and New Jersey, they feel like the bouncers at an exclusive club, right? Just making sure no one else gets anywhere near the VIP section.
That's a great way to put it, because in that cold rain and swirling wind they were playing in, defensive linemen really struggled to plant their cleats and anchor against double teams.
And New Jersey exploited that lack of leverage all afternoon.
They absolutely did.
But, okay, while Chicago and New Jersey established their dominance, the San Diego Fleet kind of snuck in and stole the West Division title from Las Vegas.
They did. They beat St. Louis 36-6.
But looking at the box score here, I have a major question about San Diego's offensive viability.
Okay, let's hear it.
They win by 30 points, yet their quarterback, Josh Allen, only throws for 149 yards.
Oh, I do.
They relied almost entirely on defense and special teams.
That's true.
I mean, MVP Nick Bonito had a 40-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Darnell Washington had an 82-yard punt return. They forced 5 turnovers in total.
Right.
So my question is, can a team seriously survive in the playoffs when their superstar quarterback fails to crack 150 yards passing, and they just rely on defensive scoop and scores?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds precarious, I agree. But when you look at the mechanics of those turnovers, it's actually highly sustainable.
Really sustainable.
Yeah, because San Diego isn't just getting lucky bounces. They operate one of the most complex, simulated pressure schemes in the entire league.
Okay, break that down for us.
So they regularly line up 6 or 7 defenders right on the line of scrimmage, showing this all-out blitz.
Showing pure chaos.
Exactly. But right before the snap, 3 of those defenders drop back into throwing lanes while defensive backs blitz from the perimeter.
So they're actively forcing the quarterback to make a rush decision based on a pre-snap read that is no longer valid once the ball is actually hiked.
Exactly. The offensive line slides their protection to block the linebackers they assume are rushing, and that leaves the blitzing cornerbacks completely unblocked.
Wow.
So the quarterback throws hot to avoid the sack right into the hands of a dropping defensive end. Turnovers in this system are a feature, they are not a fluke.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
If your defense consistently hands your offense a short field, your quarterback doesn't need to throw for 300 yards. Allen only throwing for 149 yards is just proof that San Diego can neutralize a playoff caliber team without asking their quarterback to play hero ball.
But that schematic confusion, I mean, that requires an incredibly high level of game speed repetition to execute properly, right? The defense has to be in perfect sync.
Absolutely. One missed assignment and the whole thing falls apart.
Which makes the strategic dilemma faced by other teams this week even more compelling. Because we saw teams locked into lower playoff seeds actively choose to sacrifice those game speed reps to rest their starters.
Yes. The classic rest versus rust dilemma.
It's the eternal debate.
It really comes down to weighing the necessity of timing and rhythm against the physical toll of a 17-game season.
And resting starters completely backfired for several contenders this week. Let's look at DC.
That was a rough one.
Head coach Jared Mayo decided to sit CJ Stroud just to avoid a repeat of his 2024 season-ending injury. So Marcus Mariota starts instead.
And the result was pretty ugly.
Yeah, DC loses 35-20 to a San Antonio team that is totally out of the playoff hunt. Jared Goff just carved up the DC defense, posting a 150-point aero passer rating with 258 yards and 4 touchdowns.
It was a surgical performance by Goff.
And then Baltimore tried the exact same strategy. They spared Saquon Barkley to keep him fresh, and they get upset 38-20 by Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay just rolled over him.
Will Levis throws for 325 yards, rushes for 42 more, and Tampa piles up 506 yards of total offense without a single turnover.
Well, see, here's the thing. When a coaching staff decides to rest a handful of defensive starters, the communication network of the entire unit collapses.
Because they're used to the guys next to them.
Right. Modern defenses rely on split-second verbal and nonverbal cues just to pass off receivers in zone coverage.
Yeah.
So when you insert backups who haven't logged thousands of reps alongside the starters, a safety might react, a half second too late to a crossing route.
And that half second is all a veteran quarterback like Jared Goff needs to thread a touchdown pass.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because to me, it reminds me of the muscle memory required by a concert pianist.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, because resting your starters to avoid injury, it's like a pianist skipping practice the entire week before a major performance just to avoid carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Sure, their hands are fully rested, but when the curtain finally goes up, their internal metronome is entirely off. They just miss the complex chords.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Football is governed by these microsecond rhythms, but, and there is a but, here we did see one fascinating anomaly to this rule in Atlanta.
Oh, right, the Atlanta game.
Yeah. D'Amico Ryans rested Joe Burrow as a precaution, giving Kirk Cousins the start against the New York Generals.
And instead of the offense losing its rhythm, Cousins threw for 371 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 39-10 blowout.
Right. So how does that happen?
Yeah. How does DC's backup offense totally implode while Atlanta's backup quarterback puts up nearly 400 yards and feeds Puka Nacua for 10 catches and 199 yards?
Yeah, because of the specific nature of the quarterback involved.
Okay, tell me more.
Kirk Cousins operates purely as a traditional pocket passer. His game isn't predicated on physical mobility or evading unblocked edge rushers.
Right. He's a statuesque guy in the pocket.
Exactly. It's predicated entirely on pre-snap processing and diagnosing coverages. So his mental reps translate directly to the field. He doesn't need to physically calibrate his speed to the game. He just needs to calibrate his eyes.
That makes a ton of sense. But, regardless of why it happened, the psychological momentum heading into next week is just jarring.
It's a huge factor.
You have Tampa Bay finishing 5-9, but heading into the offseason incredibly optimistic because their offense just clicked perfectly.
Yeah, they're riding.
Meanwhile, playoff-bound teams like Baltimore and DC, they are stumbling backward into wild card weekend. They now have to restart an engine they intentionally turned off, and they have to do it against highly motivated opponents.
It is a very dangerous game to play with team psychology. You can't just flip a switch.
You really can't. And while some teams were turning off the engine, others had the pedal pressed firmly to the floorboard.
Even when the standings dictated they had nothing left to play for.
Exactly. We saw massive individual milestones reached in games with zero playoff implications.
Derrick Henry is the prime example.
King Henry. Denver beat Detroit 29-10. Brock Bowers took MVP honors with 11 catches for 128 yards, but the defining historical moment belonged to Henry.
Without a doubt.
He rushed for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, finishing the season with 1,520 rushing yards to capture his 3rd rushing title.
And to really put that achievement into perspective, you have to look at the historical timeline.
Let's hear it.
Henry won the rushing title in 2021, 2024, and now in 2025.
Wow.
He's the first back-to-back champion since LaDainian Tomlinson did it for Los Angeles back in 07 and 08.
That's legendary company.
And he's the first three-time winner since Eric Dickerson dominated for Montreal in 84, 86, and 88.
Unbelievable.
He's currently chasing Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders, who both hold the record with 4 titles.
I mean, to maintain this level of production, especially considering the sheer volume of collisions he has absorbed over his career, it just defies normal running back shelf lives.
It really comes down to biomechanics.
How so?
Well, shifty, lateral-moving running backs often suffer severe ligament injuries because they are constantly cutting against their own momentum.
All those hard stops and starts.
Exactly. Henry operates almost exclusively as a downhill linear runner. Instead of absorbing contact, he initiates it.
He delivers the blow.
Yeah. He uses that devastating stiff arm not just as a weapon, but as a stabilizing pivot to maintain his balance while moving forward.
That's fascinating.
That mechanical difference has preserved his lower body far longer than his contemporaries.
Well, we also saw receivers pushing their physical ceilings in these low-stakes environments, too. I mean, we mentioned Pukanakua, but Keon Coleman's day for Cleveland was just staggering.
It really was a career day.
Cleveland beat Los Angeles 30-7. Sam Darnold threw for 335 yards, and Coleman caught 11 passes for 205 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Incredible numbers.
He accounted for over 60% of Cleveland's total passing yardage. Now, I gotta play devil's advocate here.
Okay, go.
When one receiver accounts for 60% of a team's production, is that an indicator of individual dominance, or does it reveal that Cleveland's offensive scheme is highly one-dimensional?
That's a fair question.
Because if a defense knows one player is getting the ball that frequently, why aren't they triple teaming him?
What's fascinating here is that they attempt to, but an offensive coordinator can actually scheme a receiver out of a double team through alignment and motion.
How does that work in practice?
Well, Cleveland consistently used pre-snap motion to prevent Los Angeles from pressing Coleman at the line of scrimmage. They would also use what we call stack releases, lining Coleman up directly behind another receiver.
Ah, so the defense can't jam him.
Exactly. The defense cannot physically double team a player if they don't know exactly where he's going to be when the ball is snapped, or if another receiver is running a rub route to essentially pick the defending cornerback.
So it's like a legal screen.
Right. Coleman's production was a result of elite route running, capitalizing on brilliant pre-snap alignments. He found the soft spots in the coverage shell every single time.
That makes a lot of sense. And, you know, Lamar Jackson did something similar, acting as the ultimate spoiler for Memphis.
He really ruined Philly's day.
He totally did. Memphis was playing Philadelphia, who needed a win to lock down a higher seed. Jackson dismantled them. He generated 461 total yards of offense.
Unstoppable.
Throwing for 402 yards and rushing for 59 more. He led Memphis to a 31-17 upset, despite Memphis finishing 6-8 and missing the playoffs for only the second time in Mike Vrabel's 5-year tenure.
Jackson stresses defensive gap integrity like no other player in the league.
Yeah, defensive coordinators must have nightmares about him.
Oh, they do. In a standard run fit, defensive linemen are assigned specific gaps. But when Jackson runs the read option, he forces the defensive end to make a choice.
And neither choice is good.
Right. If the defensive end crashes down to tackle the running back, Jackson pulls the ball and attacks the perimeter. But if the defensive end stays disciplined on the edge, Jackson hands the ball off or throws a quick seam route.
He just turns fundamental defensive discipline into a structural liability.
It is brilliant to watch when it clicks.
It really is. But the flip side of that brilliance brings us to the dark side of Week 16. Because while some teams were maximizing their physical output, others were navigating just total structural collapses.
The organizational teardowns.
Let's look at the teams hitting the reset button. The Los Angeles Wildcats officially clinched the #1 overall draft pick, finishing 113.
Which marks the worst season in their 43-year franchise history.
A tough year for LA fans. The Detroit Wheels take the #2 pick after finishing 212. The New York Generals finish 410, suffering their second straight double-digit losing season.
And that has placed head coach Dan Quinn squarely on the hot seat.
Big time. But those are, you know, standard rebuilding scenarios. What happened in Pittsburgh this week wasn't a standard rebuild. It was a seismic event.
It was a complete institutional reset. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Pittsburgh played the Arizona Rattlers. Arizona won 26-14, fueled by Bijan Robinson rushing for 141 yards and looking completely untouchable.
He was phenomenal.
But nobody was looking at the field because Patrick Mahomes did not start the game for Pittsburgh. Head coach Mike Tomlin started Kyler Murray instead.
Which sent shockwaves everywhere.
And the reason. Mahomes is exercising a contract clause to seek an off-season trade. And if that wasn't enough, within hours of the game ending, Mike Tomlin announced a mutual parting of ways with ownership.
So what does this all mean? I want you to consider the roster construction and salary cap implications of what just happened.
It's massive.
Pittsburgh finishes 3-11. They hold the number 3 overall pick in the draft. And they also own Tampa Bay's first-round pick.
Right.
Having 2 top-tier first-round selections gives a franchise incredible flexibility to draft cost-controlled cornerstones. Furthermore, trading Mahomes will clear a staggering amount of cap space, likely upwards of $50 million annually.
But clearing cap space doesn't replace the culture, you know?
That's the hard part.
Think about being a Pittsburgh fan right now. You just lost a legendary coach who defined the gritty, resilient identity of your locker room for years.
A true icon.
Simultaneously, you are losing a quarterback whose sheer physical talent can mask a dozen offensive line deficiencies on any given Sunday.
You can't just buy that in free agency.
You really can't. You have all the draft capital in the world, but you are asking a completely new front office and coaching staff to replace the irreplaceable.
Because draft capital is just potential energy. It means absolutely nothing until it is converted into kinetic production on the field.
Right, they're just lottery tickets until the players actually perform.
Exactly. The incoming regime will have a blank canvas, but the margin for error when replacing an icon like Tomlin and a talent like Mahomes is practically zero.
It's a lot of pressure.
If you miss on those first-round draft picks, the franchise wanders in the wilderness for a decade.
Well, while Pittsburgh stares down a massive offseason overhaul, the rest of the league is bracing for the tournament. The regular season is history, and the wild card schedule is officially set.
Let's detail that playoff slate for December 27th and 28th, which will be streaming on the Replay Sports channel on YouTube.
Give us the breakdown.
On Saturday, we have the number 5 seed Baltimore traveling to face the number 4 seed St. Louis. Following that, the number 6 seed Denver heads to the desert to play the number 3 seed Las Vegas.
Awesome. And Sunday's matchups.
Sunday begins with the number 6 seed DC on the road against the number 3 seed Philadelphia. And then the weekend concludes with the number 5 seed Atlanta taking on the number 4 seed Arizona.
That is a phenomenal lineup of football. And it really brings us back to the core question we raised at the top of this deep dive.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We really have. We have analyzed teams that rely on simulated pressures and heavy personnel to dictate the flow of the game. We've seen the consequences of disrupting a team's internal metronome by resting starters.
Yeah, that rest versus rust dynamic.
And we have witnessed veteran stars finding new ways to exploit coverage shells in basically meaningless games.
Every single team is carrying a different set of variables into this tournament.
Which leaves you with one final thought to mull over as the playoffs begin. Does the tactical momentum and the muscle memory established over the last 16 weeks actually travel into the postseason?
It's the ultimate question.
Or does a 0-0 playoff record serve as a great equalizer, suddenly rendering all those intricate defensive schemes and carefully protected offensive stats completely irrelevant under the pressure of a win-or-go-home reality?
The tape never lies, but the playoffs demand a completely different level of execution.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the schemes, keep looking past the box scores, and enjoy Wild Card Weekend.